How did the court decide who was a witch? It's important to understand that the events of the Salem witch trials were unlike any other colonial witchcraft panic. One of the reasons for this was due to the strange legal situation in 1692. Massachusetts-based charter, the document that outlined the government for the colony, had previously been revoked. As a result, at the start of the witchcraft panic, only pre-trial examinations could occur. However, in May of 1692, a new charter arrived. A court was then quickly established as an emergency response to the rising accusations of witchcraft occurring across Essex County. It was called the Court of Oyer and Termina, meaning to hear and to determine. As the Court of Oyer and Termina was hastily assembled, it was instructed to base its decisions off of English common law. However, as it was an emergency court, it was allowed to make its own decisions around how to address these witchcraft allegations. One of the decisions that it made, and one that would prove the most deadly, was to accept something known as spectral evidence. Spectral evidence was testimonies from individuals claiming that they had seen dreams or visions of people tormenting them, appearing as a ghost or spectre. This form of evidence was very controversial, and many did not think that it was trustworthy. However, as it was the primary form of evidence being brought before the court, it was accepted anyway. The trials held before the Court of Oyer and Termina started in early June. These proceedings were biased against the accused, who were already assumed to be guilty in the eyes of the court. This was a common way that courts operated at this time. You were assumed to be guilty until proven innocent. Despite the accused declaring their innocence, opposing testimonies from the afflicted were given chief authority. The afflicted were those who claimed to be being bewitched by the accused and would display symptoms such as writhing in pain, making unusual sounds, or claiming to be tormented by these ghostly spectres. They would also often begin displaying these symptoms when in the presence of the accused in court, which was also taken as evidence that witchcraft was afoot. In addition to spectral evidence, the court also used several controversial folk tests, which again were not usually accepted in criminal trials. One of these was called the touch test. It was believed that if the afflicted touched the witch who was bewitching them, their suffering and symptoms would immediately ease. The accused were also at times instructed to recite the Lord's Prayer, something that it was believed impossible for a witch to do. However, even in cases where the accused could recite this perfectly, such as the case of former pastor George Burroughs, this was then twisted as evidence that the devil was somehow disguising himself as an angel of light. Again, this shows just how biased the court proceedings were. The court also used character testimonies in order to try and prove that the accused were wicked people. These drew on existing local rumours and gossip about the accused. Sarah Osborne, for example, was already a subject of gossip due to having previously married her indentured servant. Sarah Good was also seen as a community outcast, a poor transient woman known for being argumentative and outspoken. In fact, many of the accused had years of pre-existing community gossip stacked against them, which were then used in court as evidence of them having deviant characters. To summarise, it was very difficult to try and prove your innocence in the Court of Oyer and Termina. This was an unusual court, hastily formed in emergency at a time of widespread fear and panic. Had the magistrates taken different steps, the witchcraft trials could have been avoided. But unfortunately, this wasn't the case.